I wanted to jump in here, like I said, May, and do a little bit of impromptu. I'll share this recording back into the group so everybody's got it. But there were two trades that was put out on Platos today. Now, some of the new people aren't going to see these, but the whole point here is training. It really doesn't matter. It just understands what we've just learned, especially about fair value gaps so far. And there's a prime example of a fair value gap touch and go, if you want to call it. I call it that. It's how it came into me. So I'm going to do a screen share. I'm going to talk about these two trades. One of the things that's very, very important that we do when we're taking these trade ideas is we have to stop and look at the charts. We have to stop and look at the charts and look at them and see if the trade makes sense. Now, if you're brand new, you have no idea, and that's fine. That's why you want to do this on a demo account and not a real account for start. So let me do a screen share.
Okay.
So this is the US30 trades. She dropped a trade idea this morning about 10:15, and then she did another trade idea at 12:22. And I want to go through these and I want to talk about these. Now I don't have any indicators turned on. I just did like a rewind back to 9:15. Now the first thing that I'm looking at, right, as we're coming across the consolidation zone, it gets into the morning time, and we know the markets open at about 7 o'clock, at least my time. It's 8 o'clock Eastern, but they open about 7 Central, and they start running. And you could see here at the 8:30 market open, right? You got a nice big candle, and then it comes down here, and then what do we see right here? I've got an elliptical right around this, right? What kind of candle did we learn? What is that?
Oh, the one with the space in between. I can't remember what the name of it is.
No, this candle right here.
Oh,
what is this
that
candle?
one. The green that's going downward.
Yeah, what is that candle? Remember we went through Jess's class. I think it was boot camp 12 number 12. Talks about the different
candles. I wasn't in hers on that one. I don't think I was in her class on that one.
Yeah, that's a really, really good class to go through. Go into the stock options, go to the 2024 boot camp, and go watch video number 12 or class number 12. And she talks about price action, and she explains the different types of candles. And it's very important that you know these types of candles because they don't just apply to stock options, they apply to trading period. So that's why I encourage you to go watch class 7 and class 8 and class 12 in the stock options boot camp classes. You got to go watch those, and because they're very basics in the class. So we're not going to get into that. So basically you got a hammer candle. It might be, referred to as a spinning top. It looks more like a hammer to me. Anyway, I call them the funky candles. It's a funky candle that came down and it changed color, right? So typically, and I don't have any indicators turned on down here. So I don't have my Smart Money Concepts indicator turned on. I don't have any of that stuff because there's an order block down here, and we'll talk about that. So this is a candle. We don't know what's going on yet. We do know that price came in here. There might be an equilibrium zone in here somewhere, but we're just working off of what we can see right now. We haven't really back tested anything. We're just looking at what we can see. And this was the 9:15 candle. So let's go to the next candle. All right, let's pause right there. So in this move, let me move my little elliptical. In this move right here, remember when we were talking about fair value gaps, right? There's a fair value gap. We have to have 3 candles, right? This created a fair value gap. And hopefully this won't throw a bunch of drawings on here. Right there, basically. Let me pull that back just a bit. So from the top of the wick on this candle to the bottom of the wick on candle number 3, see, candle number 3 has just got a flat bottom. That counts as a wick. So what we learned in fair value gaps, right, is I call it a touch and go. So the next candle, the 4th candle that printed, it came down and just barely touched the fair value gap. The next candle that came down came into the fair value gap, but the body did not close below the 50% in a fair value gap. typically, if the body's going to close, and this is what I learned, and we'll figure this out more as we go, is, come on, be nice, is if the body closes below the 50% area in a fair value gap, there's a pretty good chance it's going to change direction, go the other way. But we'll go with what we're seeing right here, right? So the candle came down, the wicks came down, it touched and entered just a little bit, which tells us from what we learned that the fair value gap, the trend is going to keep going in this direction. Now, knowing this, and let's see, which is the 10:15 candle? That's the 10 o'clock. So the red candle is actually the 10:15 candle where she dropped this trade idea, right? She came in this trade idea and she put the entry point right at the bottom of the wick, which is just above the 50% fair value gap. Now, what we learned in our class is, first thing I did is I looked at this and said, okay, there is an order block down here, but why are we entering this trade right here? And that's the question that we always have to ask ourselves. Why would I enter this trade right here? Because it doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't, based on what I just learned with fair value gaps, this candle doesn't dictate the direction of this move, right? It's not saying that it's going to go in this direction, right? So again, I'm not doing any back testing. I'm just looking at what's in front of me right here, just based on these 3 candles. And I'm looking at the 15-minute. I haven't gone out to the hour. I haven't gone down to the 1 minute. I'm just looking at the 15-minute, what's in front of us. So just looking at what's in front of us, and this can apply to any time frame, right? Any setup. So as we're moving, right? As we're moving, let's go ahead and go to the next candle. Now this is again, you put a stop loss like way up here somewhere. I don't remember what it was. Let me see. Let's see. Stop loss is 39,450. Stop loss was way up here. Excuse me. So if you did stay in this trade and you did go with her stop loss, you're going to get stopped out and you're going to lose a lot of pippage there. And I think it ends up losing 100 and, I don't know, a lot. Anyhow. So let's move this. So next candle, it's not going in that direction at all, right?
Right.
So as you can see, it's trending up. It's basically coming back and filling this liquidity going. Again, we got a fair value gap right here that hasn't been filled yet. And let's see, there might be another. No, those wicks are covering, so there's no fair value gap there. So let's keep going. It's running up, it's running up, it's running up. Now here is when I saw this candle, when I saw this institutional candle, first I saw this Morningstar candle print right up here. Again, that's another reason why you want to go study those candles, May and Charity and everybody else, because we got a Morningstar that printed up here. And then I've got an institutional candle that just came in. You can call it whatever. It's an institutional candle that printed because that's a mega candle. Anything that's really, really big is typically, especially if it's a turn in direction. We had a nice trend up here. If somebody was in this trade this morning, they got stopped out. Hopefully they realized what was going on. They closed their trade down here and ran up. This trade now printed and she entered a second trade. I said, okay, now she's talking my language. Now she's talking my language, right? So let's go ahead and take a look at the next candle. Okay, good, good, good. Right through TP1, right? Came back up and sort of hanging out in TP1, not doing a lot. And we're right here, right now, at the 330 candle, basically toward the end of the trading day. So when we look at this overall, what we've learned, one is I had a hammer candle down there. You could call this a spinning top, whatever. I call it a funky candle. It came down, it changed colors. Right now, this was just an indecision candle right here. Right, didn't really mean anything because our next candle that printed was still a bearish candle. Then we got an indecision candle. We got a long wick that says, okay, we're stalling, put on the brakes. When I see that, it just tells me put on the brakes, right? These 3 candles created a fair value gap right here. They came down, they just touched, but they didn't close inside this fair value gap, which I think, if I remember the notes correctly, means that they're going to continue, which it did. Continued right up here. And then we got a Morningstar.
Morningstar.
Right? Yep, thank you. Yep, a Morningstar candle here And then we've got an institutional candle, which ran right down here. This was a sweet deal. If you took this trade, you made some money, right? Because this was just all day long. So now, right, let's turn off all my drawings. Now I'm going to leave those on. I'm just going to turn on the smart money. And you're going to see how smart the smart money was on this. And I'm going to turn on this other fair value gaps because it shows up better. All right. So you see the fair value gap right here, right? This was the, let me go ahead and delete that. I put a block around that. So this fair value gap right here, right? Again, price came down into it, just touched a little bit, didn't do anything. This keeps hovering in the way. Price ran up here and it came in and it just took off running, right? And I kept watching this saying, okay, is it going to come back? And is it going to come back? But I kept looking at these flat candles, like flat candle, little bitty wiki candle, tried to freak us out a little bit because it's coming in and it's stalling. And the reason it's stalling is because you've got this zone right here, right? You've got this zone. It's a, I think there's an equilibrium zone here. I can't see. I might have to go up to another time zone, another time frame. But there's an equilibrium floating right around in here somewhere. Oh, here it is. So there's an equilibrium here. But this just blew up and blew right down in through this, right? TP1 came into a little bit of a zone, and then we've got a big order block down here, this big green order block we can see. Let me hide drawings, right? So you can see there's an order block here, right? So without even having to use the indicator, right, we can see what happened. We had a hammer candle here. It took off. It came into the fair value gap. It touched, right? This one barely touched, and then this one entered a little bit, and then it just took off. And we got our morning star up here, which tells us if we're looking at candles, it's a trend change. It moved, came right down here and then stalled out. And I think it's stalling out because you have this sort of this zone right here that you can see. And if you come back over this way, now we go up to the 1 hour. And this is when I say smart money and cheat off the smart kids, we got to pay attention to what the smart kids are looking at, because this trade down here, although we did have some zones in a discount zone, this candle right here came down and basically liquidated everybody sitting in these, there's dollar signs right here. So it basically came into the discount zone, just like it says discount zone, and it took up all that money with this wicks. It wasn't a big move because it left a bunch down here when we go to the higher time frames, but it liquidated, right? It took out some cash right here and it took off. And I'm pretty sure up here we got actually a premium zone up here, because this could have actually just kept going and bounced off of this and then turned around and came back, but it didn't. It came up to here and stalled, which was nice. And now it's sort of hanging out in here. So when you guys get trade ideas, right, pay attention to this stuff, right? Before you just enter it into your trading software, if you have experience, right? If you have experience, pay attention to these other candles. What are they telling me in terms of, is there a reason why this trade should come down here? So let's go and take a look at the 1 hour, right? So if I come out to the 1 hour, I've got a zone way down here, so I can pull this all the way over, right? So that sort of makes sense from that perspective. I've got a huge fair value gap here. However, this candles came down in and hit, it wicked into this zone, which tells me we don't have any bodies closing. We don't have any bodies closing yet into this zone until we get to these candles here. So if I was able to pull this all the way over here, you can see that we finally got a couple of candles that closed inside of this zone. We got a lot of touches going on here, right? We got touch 1, touch 2, 3, 4, 5, another touch. And typically now what is going to happen, it's going to run up here. It's going to give us a little bit of money, but we still got a nice downtrend here because these did not break into this zone up here. We've got a nice zone up here. I don't think there's, yeah, I don't see a, we got this huge fair value gap right here, but it looks like this has all been liquidated out. So it's been eaten up. and now the price is running down here. It's just sort of hanging out in this next fair value gap, which is these two candles right here. It's got another fair value gap. It's just hanging out. So since it did break the 50% on this fair value gap, and we've got another zone right down here, right? We've got all this liquidity sitting down here. It's a pretty good chance price may run down this way sometime. We don't know when that's going to happen. We just have to wait and see. But the smart thing to do is, before you just go randomly enter a trade, is look at what's going on with the market. Why is it doing what it's doing? For example, here we had a run on liquidity, right? We went into we had all these touches, and then we had a run on liquidity. It came up here, and this was one of Abdullah's entries here. Again, he was hoping that it was going to run all the way up to the zone that's up here somewhere, right? And it just isn't ready to do that yet. It's sort of hanging down in this area, doing what it does. So let me hit stop share. Any questions?
Not really a question, just an observation. I think you're totally right. I didn't enter any because I've realized now that I really have to take especially her trade ideas and analyze them, because it's been a bit of a hit and miss for me with the trade ideas. So yeah, thank you for painting that picture. And I think it gives guidelines, especially now with the smart money concept, because it really makes sense with what he said today about the was it today, yesterday, fair value gap. It's beginning to come together. So thank you.
No, absolutely. And once you start to get those little nuggets, like, okay, fair value gap, morning star, hammer candle, liquidity zones, and you start to put all those together, and you see how price works around those little pieces of the puzzle, you'll just start to see them. Like, you'll start to see that, okay, here's that candle, what's going on? It's at the bottom of a move, it's at a support area. So now what's going to happen, right? And then we're going to look left to see if there's any other zones. The reason what I call I call a stall zone, like, okay, price is going to come here, it's going to put on the brakes, just like it did here at the TP1 zone for the afternoon trade. It headed towards TP2, but it's going to hang out here a while, and we'll see what happens. But it's being smart. The second I saw that Morningstar candle at the top, and it hit I thought it hit another zone. I don't recall if there was I don't recall if there was another zone. Oh yeah. There was, right? Hold on a second. So there was also this zone right here, right? So it was like, hello, bing, 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 bing. Got a Morningstar. I've got an order block that printed right here. I've got a huge freaking institutional candle. Let's go, right? Let's go. Now, the question here, and this is a really, really good example for a TP2, is coming down in here somewhere. Now, because there's a fair value gap running right here, if you guys can see it, right? This blue fair value gap, if this was me, I would have took the trade to right here, right? Which I sort of did. And then I waited, and then I saw this candle starting to print. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna chill, and I'm gonna go ahead and close my trade, and I'm gonna take the profit that I made from here to here, and I think I ended up with about $1,800 or something like that. So in doing this, right, again, it's being smart. Like, use the tools, because this is a zone. You haven't had a full candle break through this fair value gap yet. It comes down, and then we had an order block right here on top of that. So we got an order block and a fair value gap sitting on top of each other. It's like, stop, put on the brakes, right? And now it's just chilling. And we actually have a double bottom. If that's going to, I don't see, my software isn't telling me, it's not giving me the equal lows thing. I think it's going to have to come back and touch again before it does that. So this is probably, what do you call them? Tweezers, right? Tweezer bottom candle. So you got to learn all this stuff. It just takes a while, and don't overthink stuff, right? Just look at the primary indicators. Like we had this morning star, we had the hammer candle, we had it come down and we turned our next two candles printed up here, and we had a fair value gap. And then, like I said, I can see where she was trying to come down to this order block down here, but it just didn't make sense right now because we had this huge fair value gap. She should have waited till, and again, this is me just saying what Forrest would do. I would have waited for a candle to break under this and then the next candle to print before I went this way. That's just me, right? I might have even waited for it to come under this candle to see if it was going to come down to this zone, because you got a discount zone down here. So there's not a lot of room to move. Might have just, waited for it to break the fair value gap, enter this, and then taken it down somewhere really short and took a really small trade in this. But I like bigger trades. I like ones that they're just clearly a nice move to make some nice money. Those little short ones are nice. I'll take the $200 or $300 trades all day long, but if I can, wrap up a trade and come out with 1,800 bucks, I'm gonna take that all day long. So, any questions?
What's that blue, where the price has now stalled? You have a little blue strip there. What is that?
That's a fair value gap printing. It's a
Ah,
fair value gap. Yeah, it's a fair value gap. It's really, really small. It's just there's a small fair value gap going on right there. And and that's one thing to look at too, is a lot of times you'll get like on real small price volume. Sometimes you'll see these little blue lines pop up. Basically just fair value gaps based on the software. If you turn it off, it'll go away. If I turn off my fair value gap stuff, it'll disappear. Here, I'll show you. Just gone. I just turn off the fair value gaps. And there's a little bit between these three candles right here. There's a little bitty, like the wick comes up and then this one comes down. There's a little bitty fair value gap right there. Just really, really micro. Just a really small micro between this candle and the bottom of this candle. There's a little fair value gap right there. You see that, Charity?
yes, I do. Yeah, it's tiny, but do you think that then when we see that, we have an awareness that price might stall there for a bit, even though it's just tiny and in the process of being created?
I mean, you got to look at all the candles, right? Look at the
Yeah.
small volume. Just look. It's 3 o'clock. It's the end. It's basically it's 4 o'clock here. It's 5 o'clock. So basically, the market's getting ready to close for about an hour, right? So if it hasn't already shut down yet, yep, it's closed. So there's not a lot gonna be happening for a little bit with these candles. So they just came in here and it's like they stalled out, tried to get some money back here. Then now they're just sort of goofing around, right? You can always go up to a higher time frame and get a better look on the candles and see how they just have some mega wicks going on here. I don't think there's going to be any fair value gaps in there. Oh, look at that. Yeah, there's this fair value gap off this candle here. This 1 hour fair value. So you got a nice gap here. But look, this candle closed the 50% area on this fair value gap. This one just blew right through it. This one blew right through it on the wicks. So if I'm looking at my 1 hour, right? What is my 1 hour telling me price wants to do? All right, let me hide. What is my 1 hour? Because we've got a fair value gap right here too. This is the yellow one and the blue one's a smaller fair value gap, but you got a big fair value gap from the top of this wick on this candle to the bottom of this one here. We got another fair value gap. So price blew through this one. And remember what he said yesterday on the training. He says a lot of times when price blows through, this one hasn't quite gone yet because it's just basically hanging out being a little dragonfly or maybe doji, depending on how this finishes, because it's still got another hour and 39 minutes to go before it does whatever it's got to do.
It will become a flip zone if it goes through it?
It might. Flip zone. Yeah, but again, you got this fair value gap here. So it might go bam and bounce off of this and then go. Right. And we need to take a look at what's down here, right? Because it looks like this candle came down and took out a lot of liquidity. So let's turn on and see what we're looking at. this is a big order block right here. So price is actually sitting in an order block with another order block down here. So it could very well just keep going and going and going and going and going and going and going, but it might come up because this wick did touch, right? This wick touched this fair value gap. So there's a lot to look at. There is a fair value gap. The wick on this candle touched it, just like you said. I call it a touch and go. Touched it, and then it just came in and totally ate up the fair value gap that was over here with all of these candles, right? Which means it may turn around and bounce and come back this direction, bounce off of this, and then come back down this way. We just gotta wait and see how the next few candles print and what they tell us in terms of, are they gonna change direction, right? Because we've got 2 candles here. We got this huge freaking mega candle here on the 1 hour. Let's go up to the 4 hour and see what the 4 hour looks like. Yeah, the 4 hours is messy. I mean, it's pretty messy. So yeah, you've got a big order block. The price is just sitting in. We got a huge zone up here. We got a huge zone down here. We got another fair value gap down here. We got a lot of directions. We got a strong low right here, right? Strong low right here, which means possibly, depending on when the banks want to make the move. And that's the question. Where's my little that's the question, is when, right? When is this move going to happen? Right? When are they going to go there?
Okay.
I don't know. We just got to wait and see. When are the banks going to say, oh, let's go down here and take out all this liquidity that's sitting down in this area, right? Because remember, we've got stop zones down here coming back for buys. They sell to buy, right? Because we've got a selling motion here right now. But overall, whoa, that sounded like a big tree limb just on the roof. We've got an overall that's still trending in an upward direction, right? You can see it from here to here. We still sort of got an upward trend, although we've got a stall out here. We came into a smaller premium zone. We got a huge order block up here, which probably goes back somewhere into the dailies. Then we go to the dailies, and you can see it's even crazier what we're looking at. Look at all this liquidity sitting down in here, right? So price could boom here. We got a lot of what I call the little funky candles, and we go up to the daily. So we got a lot to look at, and you just got to literally play it one candle at a time. Play it one candle at a time to see where it looks, and that's where these guys have this patience, where they can just sit and like,
yeah,
and you really are looking for those fair value gaps, or the 1, 2, 3s, or the morning stars, or the spinning tops. Spinning tops, to me, I've realized that, I know Jess said that spinning tops have a tendency, that's when she's going to get in, but I've seen a lot of spinning tops. They're just indecision candles. And I was watching a guy on a video. He said, don't get swayed by those. Now in stock options, it may be different, but in Forex, I've seen a lot of spinning tops that did absolutely nothing. Price just kept going, right? So I know that the hanging mans, or the hammer candles, and the morning stars have a lot more persistence, especially if they're a color change candle. So if you got like red, and green, or green, and red, you know there's going to be a transition in that move. So any more questions? Thanks for hanging out.
Thank you. We have to work to get to that unconscious competence, I guess.
Here's what's funny, Charity, that you say that, is it's like you go through, like in the learning, and especially learning Forex, because there's so much. Like my first 6 weeks, my brain was just like it was like eyes all over, and I was excited about everything. Hey babe, you should check. Hey babe, you should check this. Hey babe, you should check. It was everything. Like it was everything. No. And then I ran in, and I jumped on started following a guy named John who taught the
Ichimoku Cloud.
There you go.
Spencer. Yeah.
John Spencer. So I ran into him, started learning his cloud deal, and sort of mixing that with a little bit of bare naked trading. And then I transitioned over to Aaron, who was teaching his, which I really like, because he's just really top to bottom, left to right, very, very basic. Kept it real simple. That really helped a lot. but I was still missing a lot. Like, you know, and there was somebody that was teaching what Donnie's teaching, but I don't think he did a good job because I didn't get any of it. It's like, right? Smart money concepts. But the overall principle of what Donnie is now teaching is just added so much for me to just like sit and see the setups. Like that setup I saw in that second trade that she dropped, especially when she dropped it, it confirmed what I was seeing. And I was like, yes, boom. And there was going. Now the first trade she dropped in there, I looked at it and said, what are you putting that in? See, that's when you get to that point where you see something, you go, I'm not seeing that. Right? Doesn't mean you're right every time, but sometimes you just don't see what they see because maybe they analyze in a different time frame because they don't put any of that stuff in there. They're not putting any, said, I analyzed on the daily and the 4 hour, and then we've got a so-and-so zone here and here. Oh, by the way, here's the entry. It'd be nice if they did that so you could connect the dots, right? Hopefully in Solex, they'll not just put up the trade idea, but they'll say why they're putting up the trade idea. That way it'll make more sense to the people on the other end. As a matter of fact, I'm going to make that suggestion that when they go in, they explain why they're putting that trade in there because I want to know. I want to know why she put in that trade. You know, just like Donnie did when he went through and explained, what do you do? Euro, was it Euro?
USD.
Yeah, and he explained. He said, "Here's why I did it, and here's what I saw." And unfortunately, we weren't expecting this crazy gap and change in direction. You can't predict that. So how do you overcome that? You don't take a trade on Friday at 2:30, right? It's not a smart idea unless you know that sucker's going to close in the next 45 minutes. Just stay away from that time frame, right? Trade in the morning time. I don't know if he took that in the afternoon or not. I don't remember, but it hung out there for quite a while. He might have been because he said he doesn't really trade on Friday, but except for the news. So it must have been one of those weird events. But again, it's what day are we going to trade? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. What are your trades? What days you're going to trade and what pairs you're going to trade and which ones you're going to get really, really, really good at. So, and I'm really, really learning the US30. I really want to just master that bad boy. So when I know if, you know, Powell talks out of the side of his neck, is US30 going to go up or down? You know, where's it going to go? And I want to be able to anticipate that and get really good at it. So that, you know, we can all teach each other how to sit down and literally in 90 minutes make $1,800, make $2,000, right? That's going to be really exciting when we can all get to that point, but it takes a while. It takes a while. So
Yeah.
appreciate you angels showing up.
Thank
Do
you.
you always trade with in the morning with Abdullah?
I don't trade with Abdullah. I've made a pact to not scalp anymore. I'm not scalping anymore. I'm just
Oh,
not, because it
okay.
just gets my brain all out of wackadoodle. And my goal is to do longer term trades. They don't have to be all day, but I would rather do a 90-minute trade, sort of stress free, rather than a 60-second trade of just me. I don't want to. It's fun sometimes, but I don't feel like I'm not feeling that. So
Uh-huh.
I mean, scalping is cool, but you've got, and this is the thing I think a lot of people miss, because there was one girl that was talking, she had a $200 account and she was trying to scalp. I'm like,
Oh my.
on US30, you can't do, there's not enough room, right? Because a 0.01 lot size with any kind of movement at all is going to take your entire account. I mean, it doesn't take much. So, I mean, 10 pips at 0.01 on a $500 account is $50,
It's 50.
something like that. So
Very quickly.
yeah, very quickly your money is gone. So if I was an Abdullah, and I would be telling people, if you're here trying to scalp with anything less than $3,000, you probably don't need to be here, in all honesty, because you just don't have room enough. And even with that size account, then people get greedy. Like, oh, $3,000, I'm gonna do a 3 lot size. Like, dude, that's one candle will take all of your money. Like, shoop, just like that. Just bloop. Try it out on demo account. If you don't believe me, try it out on demo account. Get a $3,000 demo account, do a 3 lot size, and let some scalping jack up your day, right?
Yeah.
Yes.